You are listening to your new Puppies podcast, starting you and your dog off on the right paw. Here's your host, Debbie Salento.
Hello and welcome to episode 95 of your new Puppies podcast. I'm Debbie, and today is part 2 of my conversation with Justine Schuurmans. So to quickly recap, Justine is from The Family Dog. She's the founder of The Family Dog and the creator of the Dial Method. She's been a trainer for over 20 years, and she specializes in families with young kids. Now, in part 1, she helped us answer the question, are your kids ready for a dog? And if they are, how do you prepare them to bring one home? In this part, we're going to talk about after the puppy comes home, or even after your dog comes home, what do you do when things go wrong? This is something that I have talked about before, but I still think that it's not talked about enough, that it is very common for the dog to come home, your puppy to come home, and that relationship between the kids and your new dog isn't all rainbows and cupcakes like we imagined. It's really normal. So I think it's important for us to be prepared for it. And that's exactly what Justine is going to help us with. And this is where she's going to talk about her program, the Dial Method, because this is really where it comes into play, helping parents navigate that kid-dog relationship and trying to raise kids and a dog at the same time. And also, as promised, at the end, I'm going to give you all of the information you need if you want to check out the Dial Method, including working directly with me. I'm putting together a workshop specifically for families with young kids where we work through it together so I can help you apply it to your family. But first, let's get to the good stuff and see what Justine has for us. The last thing I want to talk about, and we can talk about this for all day, is that, okay, so now you decide to get your dog, you're preparing your kids to love their dog in the right way, but the dog comes home, things are still going to go wrong. I talk about this all the time where it's like, even though you got the dog for the kids, sometimes it's disheartening because the dog's home and the kids want nothing to do with the puppy because of those sharp teeth and the way the puppy plays. The puppy might start not liking the kids because they don't feel safe around them. So what could families do? The Dial Method is all about preventing that and handling those moments when these things happen. But like in general, like how would you go about like telling parents or helping parents like kind of fix that? Things go wrong, the kids don't like the puppy or vice versa. Like how do we build that trust back once we've lost it a little bit?
Yeah, I think that thank you for bringing up the book. I appreciate that. In the book, the Dial Method is divided into 4 zones. So just to run through quickly what they are, see your dog is the first one, as you said. The second one is parent your dog. So that's explaining what your role is in the parenting piece and how similar it is actually to parenting kids and how you can draw on your own experience and actually just switch that over to parenting a puppy. The third one is teach your kids, and it lays out specifically, I know we don't have a ton of time in the podcast, but it goes through specifically what to teach your children. You could do that before the dog comes home and then keep reminding them, so you have to remind kids to say please and thank you for the rest of their lives. Even now with my teenagers, I'm still occasionally like, hello, where's the please? But it lays out specifically how to create a relationship that is going to work for the child and for the dog as well. But if things start to, and the last one, the 4th zone, I should say, is create a plan. So that's taking everything that you've learned in the Dial and then actually putting it into action. So basically the book will tell you exactly what you need to teach your children. Because from my experience, most parents just want to do a really great job. And there's not a lot of places for parents to actually learn the things that they need to teach their children or their dog. So hopefully, in an ideal world, you will have set up your household to create the best opportunity for both the kids to feel understood, protected, and cared for, and the same for the dog as well. However, as you said, sometimes things don't go according to plan and we have to backpedal a little bit. One of the first things I think I would do in that situation is create space. Now we're back into that zone again of giving everybody more breathing room, kids more breathing room from the dog. Because I've seen a lot of parents say, oh, their teeth don't really hurt. It's not a big deal. They're just a puppy. And the kids, meanwhile, like, it does hurt. So we have to believe the kids and we have to believe our dogs when they show that they're not comfortable as well. So space is a great place to start. And then let's start with, if the dog is scary to the children, then taking that into consideration, we do have to have a way for the kids and the dogs to interact that feels really safe and protected for the child. So baby gates are an amazing way of being able to do this. So the dog could be on one side of the baby gate and the kid could be playing a game with the dog or teaching a trick or doing some kind of simple skill like sitting or lying down or giving a paw, whatever the fun little trick is that the dog can do with the child, that takes away some of that level of fear and adds in some relationship building stuff. The child may even want to stuff Kongs for the dog or create activity toys, enrichment toys, which gives them some investment in the relationship without actually having to be hands-on. So really lean into the baby gates. Another thing that I love is in the mornings are just crazy. Sometimes kids come down getting ready for school and the dog may have been, if it's a puppy, may have been in the crate all night. And so you don't want to put the dog back in the crate again if you don't have to. So one of the things that I like to do is have the dog tied up on a decent leash length, so like maybe 6 foot, so they have some ability to move around, but then take some masking tape and stick a line of masking tape on the floor, and maybe if it's in your kitchen, where we absolutely know the dog can't cross that threshold. So the kids know where the safe zone is, where they can walk around and not feel like they're going to get jumped on, snapped at or whatever, because they're wearing fluffy slippers or a dressing gown or whatever. So that creates a level of safety for the kids, again, to be able to either ignore or interact with the dog without feeling like they're being threatened. And it's not big threats, obviously it's puppy threats, but they can be real too. And then if we flip over to seeing that the dog is uncomfortable and the relationship seems to need some attention on the dog side, one of the things that I like to talk about, and it is in the dial method as well, is the 3 usual suspects. And the usual
This is one of my favorite parts, just so I
Well, I kept seeing the same kind of issues happening over and over again. The dogs that were struggling with kids, they were struggling usually for one of 3 reasons. So these are the personality types that dogs have a hard time with. So the first one is the zoomy zoomers. The zoomy zoomers are fast and speedy and they jump and they throw. These are kids, by the way, these are not dogs. The kids are, yes, they're just like really super active children that aren't always aware of their own personal space or the dog's personal space. And so dogs can find them really confusing, disorienting, unpredictable, and that can destroy some trust. So if you have a zoomy zoomer, it's teaching your child to play in a different area away from your dog, or to try to be a bit more mindful of the dog's existence and their comfort level with what the person's doing, what the kid's doing. The second one is the smoochy Sam. So the smoochy Sams we touched on a little bit earlier, love to kiss and hug and get all up in the dog's face. And often dogs don't really love that stuff. And I think with smoochy Sams, it's really important to say that even if your dog doesn't mind your kid being really smoochy, lots of dogs don't like it. So I try to teach all parents to help their kids not do this with dogs, because it creates some serious muscle memory for children, that every dog they meet, this is how they learn to interact with a dog, is just go straight up to them. And so if they go for a play date at a friend's house and they go up to their friend's dog that they've never met before, and their normal MO is just go up and give the dog a big fat kiss on the lips, that dog doesn't know the child, doesn't have the same kind of connection relationship with this child they're new, it might not end up the same way. So that's really important. Anyway, so if you see that you have a smoochy Sam in your family and your dog's not responding to that well, then you could give your child a stuffed animal to really love on, because you're not going to take the zoominess out of the child. You're not going to take the smoochiness out of the child. What we have to do is try to redirect it or give it a different avenue to feel like it's fulfilled. It's the same way we were talking about herding dogs. You're not going to take the herding out of a herding dog. We have to give them a different opportunity to practice that behavior that doesn't upset everybody else in the household. The last one, and this was me, the bossy bobbies, like to be bossing everybody about. I was a horrible bossy kid when I was younger. And I find bossy bobbies, maybe I'm extra empathetic because I was one, but also find bossy bobbies are the most misunderstood. And it makes me so sad because often the bossiness comes out of real love for wanting to be around the dog. It's like really wanting to be in the relationship, but it turns to a level of micromanagement that the dog is like, oh my gosh, this is suffocating. So a lot of the kids that I've worked with that are having this kind of relationship problem are the ones that wanted the dog in the first place. They're the ones that love that dog so much. They just don't realize that the way that they're behaving is actually just turning their dog off big time. So for those kids, I like to really put them in charge of understanding their dog. So they're going to control the environment around the dog, not the dog themselves. So if they get really good at reading body language, they can be in charge of making sure that their dog is happy because they want to control something. They just do. So you can say, okay, so what's the dog feeling now? And when they learn to read the dog's body language, they kind of rat themselves out, because when they start bossing the dog, they'll immediately know that the dog doesn't like it because they'll be able to see it. Because they want to learn this stuff as well, because it's all part of the control sort of narrative. So I would identify if you have one of those three characters, and I would help them channel their energy in a different way.
I love that. I love that. Because you also talk about how to take what activities do your kids love and what activities do the dogs love, and that's where the magic happens.
Yes, totally.
There's a lot of activities puppies like to do that the kids do not.
Yes.
There's a lot of activities that the kids love to do that the dogs do not.
Yeah.
But you find happy needs, that's where the magic happens. And it depends on what the dog's needs are and what the kids, personalities and needs are. So that's where you can really dive in deep to the personality of the family.
Yeah, exactly. It's trying, again, there's no right or wrong in this. It's trying to create that connection and finding the middle ground between both of them. And you're so right. I mean, you could actually have the Zoomy Zoomer dog, the Smoochy Sam dog, and the Bossy Bobby dog. Like that, they're all very possible personalities for your puppy as well. And how they connect with your children, it's really important as a parent that you try to help them facilitate some kind of as you said, middle ground.
Oh, so much good information. And so obviously all of the resources for the dial method, I want you to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm going to put all of the resources in the show notes. There's a book, there's a video, there's a workbook, and there are trainers that might be trained to help you through the dial method out there, possibly. Amazing trainers who are going to get to help you through it. Yes. Who got to sit through a wonderful workshop with Justine and just learn so much. Let's talk, we talked about, obviously, the details with the kids and everything, but let's do a general overview. Tell us about this dial method that you created and how they can get a hold of it, and what the different resources are and who you think will benefit from it.
Oh, I'm going to start with that. The last thing first. I think everybody can benefit from it, honestly. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that having been doing this now for 20 years, it is so clear to me that what we do as human beings is everything. We immediately, when we get a dog, we go straight to got to take the dog to dog training classes or got to do some dog training. And that puts all the pressure on the dog to get it right. When things don't go well, it's the dog's fault. The dog's not doing this, the dog's not doing that. But the amazing news is you can actually make such a huge difference in your life with your dog, just in how you act, just in how, again, let's talk about separating your dog away from your children when everybody's tired. There's no training in that at all. That is just you doing something different that can create a much more peaceful life in your home. So the dial method is actually the dog training program that has zero dog training in it. It basically helps us, the human beings, understand what our role is in this relationship and how to absolutely nail it so that we can be the best pet parents. And because my specialty is working with families with young children, it actually started off as a family program. It really was to help parents. And then my friend talked me into writing another book. There's actually, I should say, there's a book and a video for parents that have the same content. So if you want to watch the video, it's an animated, really cute cartoon. I had this incredible illustrator who also happens to be a dog trainer illustrator, and it's just beautiful. She did such an amazing job, Georgie. So you can watch a 40-minute video, or you can read a book that's about 100 pages long, and that gives you all of the concepts that you'll be following for the dial method. And then there's a workbook for you to take all of that knowledge and then customize it to your own house. So your own kids, your own dog, your own home, your own lifestyle, your own belief system, whatever it is, you can make it yours, 100% yours. So it's really easy, but it's really flexible as well. So this friend of mine, Adrian, who she said to me, she runs a really big shelter in New Jersey and a training school. And she was like, I'm going to give it away to all of my puppy people. Everybody that comes to puppy class, I'm going to give it to them. I said, you can't. It's for parents. Like, a lot of your people might not have kids and you can't do that. She's like, well, can you just write another book then? So I was like, sure, no worries, no problem. Anyway, and she was right. Like this methodology is so simple that it actually applies to everybody. You really don't need to have children. I've adapted a couple of the pieces to make it more generic for every pet parent. And I'm going to be making the video. And so that has a book and a workbook already. You can get those on Amazon. And there will be a video at the end of the summer for people that don't have children but want to learn this method. Yeah, so the video is from thefamilydog.com if you want to get that. And you also get an electronic version of the workbook. So it's basically to help you, the pet parent, have a system that you can follow so that no matter what your dog is doing, and I include myself in this, by the way, I use it myself to keep me on the straight and narrow. It's like if my dog is doing something annoying or something that I find frustrating, or that I'm having a hard time dealing with, stop and run it through the dial. So I'll give you an example. I have a 2-year-old, very, very bouncy gun dog. He could run all day and still not be tired and be like, let's go. And he was starting to come into the kitchen as I was cooking, and it was driving me absolutely crazy. So if you run that through the dial, the first one is see your dog. Know that my dog has a propensity for sniffing. He's a gun dog. His nose is to the ground. He's scenting on everything. Cooking is going to be like his favorite time of day, right? Number 2, parenting him. So I've got to be giving him clear messages about what I want him to do. Otherwise, I'm not really being a very good parent. If I'm just shouting from the kitchen, get out the kitchen, which by the way, I have done. So that I'm not, yeah, not being a very good parent. Number 3 is teach my crew or teach my kids there. I am trying to teach the rest of my family. I believe, by the way, this is how this all started, is that people were allowing the dogs into the kitchen while they were cooking, and they were actually getting little bits of food or splatterings of, grease that were on the floor. So teaching the people around me that we've all got to be doing the same thing. And then number 4 is to create a plan. So of course, I'm failing this situation if I am not being really clear and activating something for my dog so that he can understand. So it's really simple. Now, when I'm cooking, I tether him to the cabinet that is outside of the kitchen. So he's on the other side, and give him a bone. And it's that simple, but literally I had to do it to myself. I had to go through the dial and be like, come on, make sure that I'm meeting all of his needs, that he's getting sniffy time outside, but I'm also being a really good parent to him and clarifying what he's supposed to be doing so that he gets in the habit. Otherwise, it's not really his fault that he's doing something that's irritating me. So that is the dial method. You can literally run any problem through it. That was just one in my house, but it gives you, I think, so much clarity on what you need to do.
Yeah, I agree. For my listeners or even like my students that are in some of my programs, the way I see it fitting into like my training, my philosophy, my services, it's like this is almost like the prerequisite. It's like everything you need to know before like you dive into the potty training, crate training, cue training, trick training, all of that stuff, because that stuff still needs to happen. But this is like the hug that kind of keeps
Yeah.
all together and keeps you sane and
Yeah.
kind of pulls us out of the mindset of I need to teach my dog every single behavior I want them to have, when it's like it's more like creating just like this harmony between you, your dog, your family.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it like if we, as the parents in the household, whether you have children or not, if you're the teacher, you would never stand up in front of a classroom without knowing exactly what you're teaching and what your goal is. You go to college for that, to get really clear on understanding the kids that are sitting in the classroom and what makes them tick and what you want to get from your brain into their brain. You would
Mm-hmm.
never just wing it. You just would not get up in front of the classroom and be like, okay, today we're going to teach this. And I don't really know what I'm saying. And I don't know what makes for good learning. And I don't really know where this is going. But fingers crossed, if you don't get it right, then you're all really bad children. You weren't paying attention. So of course we can't do that. We, as the people that are driving the bus, we have to have ourselves together. We got to be buttoned up. And this is the way to get ahead of the game. And like, it's the teacher training, really, isn't it? Before you actually the
Yeah.
teacher.
It really is. I have to say, the book which I'm holding, is not even 110 pages. Oh, it is 110 pages. And the
Sure.
video is 40 minutes, which doesn't seem like that long, but I have to say there's so much packed in here. The concepts are simple, but there's a lot of them. And I was kind of like reviewing everything and like rereading this to speak to you. And like I had to put it down. Like I read 2 sections last night and I'm like, my brain was just like, I'm like, I had to put it down and process it because there's so much information and it's so good. And then I had to do the rest this morning because it's a lot to process, because it's like it seems like a little package, but it packs a big punch.
Yes. And a lot of that is from my experience, my personal experience, obviously from working with families like so in depth over these last years and having my own children. And also a lot of the concepts are things that I have learned from like the amazing minds that are in the dog industry that have really progressive ways of thinking about living with dogs. And I think sometimes we're lucky enough that we get to go to those conferences or we get to listen to those webinars, but that information is not making it into the public sphere anywhere near as much as I would like it to. And so I requested, the permission of these amazing people to take the seed of the information of what they're trying to teach to professionals and share it with the public, because I think that we can all learn so much more just by understanding these bigger ideas. And then as a professional, we can then hook back, we can keep coming back to the dial and say, remember we talked about this, or remember this concept, because they keep popping up. These concepts just keep reoccurring. And I think it helps when everybody's using the same language, that same shared language piece. It just helps shortcut. You can immediately say, oh, remember the dial devil, or remember the usual suspects that we've talked about today, or remember the dog gogs. Like people can then get on board with this thinking, and it doesn't have to be as complicated. It can be way more simple, and you can get the benefits from it without like reading giant textbooks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, because a lot of this is based on research and professionals and scientists, and have changed the way we think about dog training. I've said it before, even on here. It's like I call myself a dog trainer just because that's what everybody understands, but it doesn't seem to fit. It's like I'm a people trainer. I'm a dog humans. Wait, I'm a dog trainer.
What am I again? Well, that's why. Yeah, and I know that I've been on your case, but that's why you have to become a family dog mediator.
I am in the. You got me back in it. I did post because I got the family dog mediator program a few months ago, and I'm very excited to get through it. But yes. Then
that language feels more comfortable, right? You're in the middle. I used to actually call myself, before I met Kim Brophy, who created Family Dog Mediation, I used to call myself an interpreter. I used to say my job is really just to interpret what the dog's saying and help you understand them, and interpret what you're saying and help the dog understand you. Like, I just felt like that was my role. But a mediator, I think, is, another way of expressing that we're just trying to help families get each other. With their relationship with their dog.
Yes.
It's everything.
I agree. Okay. Well, this has been amazing and wonderful. And like I said, I'm gonna put all of the resources in the show notes. And I am a dial guide. I did sit with Justine to learn the ins and outs of it. And I'm gonna probably put together a workshop for families, for us to like get into the nitty-gritty of it. Whether you're preparing for a dog or have a dog. So there'll be more information on that in the show notes as well, and maybe in a future podcast. But for now, this has been amazing and so much great information. I'm so glad that you took the time to talk to us. Like I said, the people who listen already knew you without knowing it, and probably some of the things you said might actually sound familiar to them. So I love that you came on here.
I'm so grateful, because it's especially if you're getting a puppy, like, it's really helpful to have some kind of a framework to understand what you're doing before you get your dog. But then at the same time, be able to check back in with it when you're in the process. Yes. Because sometimes people don't want to reread. You get a before you get your dog book, and then now you're in the next stage, and then you're in the next stage. And you'll find this when you get a puppy, that the stages keep changing. It's the same as parenting kids. You think you've nailed it, you've just got this sorted, and then boom, we're in another stage. I don't know what I'm doing.
As soon as you're like, I got this. Let me put my.
You don't got this.
Your puppy's like, just kidding.
Exactly. And then when you don't think you've got it, then amazingly you have got it. It's literally like waves of up and down. But so having something robust that you can keep checking in with, I felt like that was an essential thing for families and people to have, so that they don't feel lost, and they can feel confident that they know they're doing the right thing. Stay the course.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, the flip side is, I can't tell you how many times my clients are like, oh, my dog just seems to be getting better. I was like, give yourself a pat on the back. Like, nobody has a good dog by accident. I'm like, all of that frustration and that work, and when you're like, nothing's working, like, guess what? It obviously has, if your dog has gotten
totally. Totally. I once had a client who, after about 4 weeks of working with her family and her dog just did this beautiful sit. We were doing something, and she just sat. She was a big Leonberger, and she just sat. And I think she was waiting to be pet, or she was waiting to get I can't remember what she was doing, but she took it upon herself to sit. And I said, look at her. How great is she? And she said, oh, she always does that. She came sitting. I said, she didn't come sitting. We taught her that. You worked on that for hours, and like, this was all built into your lifestyle. And she completely had forgotten, just in 4 weeks, all of the work that she had put in. So yes, do give yourself a pat on the back. It does take work. Eventually your dogs get it, but stay the course. Just keep going.
Yeah, it's like, when you're in it, it feels like it's going to last forever. But when you're out of it, you're like, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And then you're like, let's do it again.
That's what I was like. Anybody who's gotten a second puppy and was like, wait, I don't remember this, you know exactly what we're talking.
100%.
All right, I could go on for hours and hours with you, but we gotta cut it off. We gotta say goodbye. Maybe we'll come back, but thank you so much. And again, everything, all the resources in the show notes.
Thank you for having me. I've loved it.
And that's it. I hope that you enjoyed listening into our conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. So as promised, if you are interested in experiencing the dial method or just learning more about it, there are 3 different ways you can go. And that's on purpose, because everybody learns in different ways. So if you are self-study, analog type of person, you can get the book and the workbook, both on Amazon. If you are more of a digital person, you can get the video, which is the equivalent of the book. It has the same information in it. It's just a 40-minute video and the e-workbook. So it's a digital copy of the workbook. And if you use the link below in the show notes, Justine was nice enough to give everybody 10% off. Lastly, if you want a more personalized experience, as a certified dial guide, I've put together a workshop because that's how much I believe in this program. It's a 4-week workshop where each week we work through a different point on the dial. It's going to be a group class, but I am only limiting it to 5 families to make sure that we get through everything and I get all of your questions answered. So if you're interested in that, you know there's a link in the show notes, or you can just go to playtimepause.com/dial, DIAL. And that is all I have for you today. If you are enjoying this podcast, you can rate and review it wherever you listen. If you would like to continue training with me, we have the Dial Workshop, which I just talked about, plus my other programs, Your Perfect Puppy and Playtime Pause Academy, and always private in-person sessions. You can find all the information on my website, playtimepause.com, and click on Work With Me. Otherwise, I thank you so much for listening. I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye for now.